The Sustainable Voice, bringing you big successes from small places worldwide.
Welcome back to the Sustainable Voice. This is your host, Ashish. Back, as you can see, in the studio, back where we're supposed to be. And look who's joining us. What a blast from the past. Look at this. Did I just say
I know.
plast?
I'm happy to be here.
I just said plast, didn't I?
That's okay. Somehow I think that's, maybe that was meant to be. Who knows?
Blast from the plast. We're gonna. You know what? We're going with it. We're going with it.
I'm here for it.
I'm overly excited that you're back. So which means I can't pronounce simple words. So here we are. We're at the end of the year. Welcome back.
I don't know how that happened. I know some of it may be my age, some of it is whatever. It seems so cliche, but here we are. It's the end of the year. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Do you know January 1st of this year, I had a panic attack, a full-on panic attack. We had so many things to accomplish, in the company, personally. My son was leaving for college, getting him to the right school. I had a full-on panic attack. I kid you not. Then it just dawned on me that I've just got to go piece by piece. And here we are, and everything's been checked off.
That's amazing. I didn't know
Everything.
you'd had a panic attack, but good for you. Well, how did you pull yourself together?
You know what? I didn't make so I did make a list, but it wasn't a typical list. A very good friend of mine who's much smarter than me said something that I'll never forget, and he heard it at a particular talk. I forget which one. In any given day, we might have 10 things to accomplish. We're going to accomplish 4 if we're really, really aggressive in attacking the agenda. Maybe 5. So for this year, we started breaking it down, and I just started breaking it down into points of 4. Points of 4, aiming for 5, and then it was really big goals, right? That was there, and so we have the same thing for next year, but it's easier to tackle. So that was there. How about for you? How'd the year span out for you?
It was interesting. There were a lot of ups and downs this year. A lot of things out of my control, and I feel like I kind of had to go with the flow. It didn't feel like a year for a lot of. Well, I say it wasn't a year of a lot of personal growth, but maybe it was because I had to just let go and just I don't want to say react, but maybe that was it. But like I had to wake up and realize there were only a few things that I could truly try to get done in any given day. And other
Exactly.
than that, I just needed to be available to handle whatever came my way.
100%. I mean, you and I have a mutual friend that had a pretty difficult year. He lost
Yeah.
his wife suddenly, and you and I have been watching him unfold his story piece by piece in public, and he's amazing for doing it. You and I
Mm-hmm.
both know him well. We've talked to him. I was thinking about this because I was giddy when I knew you were coming back on the show. I was giddy. So let's talk about this real quick. I was going to ask you, give me one meaningful accomplishment that you're super proud of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. So it's not one thing that I could say I worked up to this goal and then I achieved it and now yay, here I am. I did it. But the thing that was at the top of my list and sort of a knowing that I had inside of me, I have just been overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that I have in my life. And I didn't want my year to end with the same amount of stuff. So one of the things that I challenged myself this year was before you go to the store, use what you have. And so I did a lot of that this year, and I'm really proud of myself. I shopped my house, and I'm talking about everything from making food. Like, don't just go buy, like, what have you got in your house and what can you make out of that? Clear the freezers, clear the fridge. And the same with clothing and home repairs and all that. That was a big accomplishment for me to not just feel like I had to jump in the car and run to the store every, daily for something.
Nice.
So
Nice. Yeah.
it's not glamorous, but
It's
Made
a
a big
win.
difference. It brought peace to me, you know?
Well, and you've just nailed it. That's what, we get so caught up with, oh, it's a glamorous goal or one that has lots of pizzazz to it. But if it doesn't bring you peace, then what's the point?
Right.
Do you know, and I'll get into mine in a second. I
Yeah, I want to know.
found a little card that I had written in 2005 or 6. No, maybe 2007. 5 long-term goals that I wanted to accomplish. And it was 5 long term goals. And I wrote it in 2007. I found this card and they're all checked off. They're all
Mm,
checked off. And they were large goals. And it meant a lot to me because a few months before my father passed, my mother said that she had found a little tattered card in one of his jacket pockets that he had never worn for decades. And it was something that he wrote in 1980s when he
mm,
first came to the US. He wrote this down and he talked about being successful at work. His was one goal, but he was very specific about what he wanted. He wanted the company he was starting, he wanted the name to mean something. He wanted to be a good father. He wanted to make sure that I had a future. He wanted to give his family a future. And he wanted to be a good person. Like the easiest thing on that list was quit smoking.
wow. Yeah.
That was the easiest thing on the list. And we just
Hmm.
happened to find it. And we found it, I think, 4 months before he passed.
No
Just when,
kidding.
when he suddenly passed, we found it, and we just said, "Oh my God, he checked
Hmm.
off everything." He was
He did.
75 when he passed away, and he checked off everything. Tick, tick,
Mm,
tick. So that kind of gave me grace, saying, if you have a list and the easiest thing on your list is to quit smoking, I think we're going to be fine.
yeah.
So mine was actually the B Corp certification for my company. That was huge, but it was the output. It wasn't the certification didn't give me satisfaction like you're talking about. I thought it
Hmm.
would. You're gonna laugh. What actually gave me satisfaction was the effects of it. So putting out our first impact report, putting out the very first impact report to be able to actually talk about everything that we're doing and the direct impact. And a derivative of that is an algorithm that took almost a year to put together, where we're able to
Hmm.
actually now track pretty accurately how many jobs one transaction or one reservation actually supports in a country. And I saw it come to life, and we broke it down by hotels and transport, by community. And I realized that our main indicator in this is not the number of jobs, it's the number of jobs from indigenous communities.
Hmm.
So that was there. Oh, and I got an accomplishment for you that you did. I got one for you. So we were pulling our stats yesterday on this podcast that you and I
Yeah.
started, that you and I
Yeah.
helped grow. We have hit an all-time high on number of listeners. We're now being listened to in 60 different countries, this podcast. And the most watched episode this entire year was the one about the Alaska Native Corporation.
Sue. Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. So
That's
you can,
amazing. I'm
yeah,
so happy to hear that.
100%. We saw the
Hmm.
stats yesterday when we actually went onto Spotify and started looking at which episode people are talking about, and it was the most watched. And what's happened is not just the number of views, but the number of people. We obviously measure how long people listen for.
Hmm.
The longest listens came to that episode.
Wow.
So that's yeah. So there's a feather in your cap right there.
Well, I feel so fortunate that I'm connected to people like Sue and people like you and just people who make me better, you know? I love
Likewise,
that.
likewise.
That's one of the things I love is just seeing people for who they are and their unique talents and gifts, and
You
I love being
know,
challenged that way.
finding people for who they are is exactly
Mhm.
right, good and bad. We've had people come out of the woodwork and just talk about all the amazing things my father was doing for them, right? And you love meeting people like that. And then you've also had people who come to you and say, well, your father's legacy has to be protected, and you have to do a
Mm.
better job protecting his legacy. I'm not sure what more I can do to protect his legacy, but you have to do a better job protecting his legacy. And turns out it's because he was donating money quietly to them, and because that has dried up, and because I started questioning why we were donating this money, not because I didn't
Oh.
want to do it, but because I was simply asking for a viable proof of what it was being used for. And all of a sudden that gets twisted into my father's legacy and me not protecting it. So what you said right there about seeing people for what they are on both sides is
Yeah.
is I think that's really powerful. And that leads us into resolutions that matter. I mean, yes, everybody has resolutions, losing 10 pounds, losing this, buying that. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking that. So anybody who's gonna, who's gonna say that, please, it's there. I also want to encourage any of our listeners, please, whatever platform you're on, share your comments of what your resolutions are. There's no small thing. It's what Leigh, what Leigh just said. It's what gives you satisfaction. It's what makes you feel good inside. But let's talk about resolutions that matter. That's what we're going to talk about today. Stuff that's meaningful. And we're going to start with the fact that you don't like the word resolutions.
I don't. It feels there's a lot of pressure around that. It makes me it instantly makes me feel bad. I don't know. It makes me feel like I'm putting some pressure on myself, and I don't like that. I don't like feeling.
What's the word?
What's the word?
What's the word?
What's the word instead of resolution?
Yes. What's the word? Our producers.
What do you think? I don't know. I don't know. I put goals, but I mean that seems kind of.
I'm gonna actually say it. Holy shit moments.
Okay, I'll take it.
Yeah. But it is. It's
yeah.
It's moments of amplification. There's a bunch of sports figures, talking heads, and one of them says something all the time that I agree with. Force multipliers. How are you? Being a force multiplier means making the people around you better. And I think resolutions. I agree with you. Resolutions doesn't quite fit, but it is moments of inflection, moments where a shift occurs. So maybe I'm not sure what the word is. It's not even goals, because everybody's going to have different sets of goals. But really, what we're talking about here is, whether you want to call it resolutions, goals, holy whatever moments. We are basically talking about moments that alter the direction you're going, moments that cause you to make a hard turn, not a severe one, but a hard turn, right? So if your resolution is, for example, to lose 20 pounds, then your hard turn is changing your diet and exercising. If your goal is to buy a new car, then your hard turn is saving more money. If your goal is to be happy at home with your family, then your hard turn is changing your lifestyle and work habits, right? So so to me, it's about hard turns. It's about inflection points that cause you to set a hard turn. So what I would start off with to all of our listeners is that, as you think about the goals, first of all, don't write them down because somebody is telling you to do them. Right? Don't write them down because somebody's telling you, oh, it's important to have goals. Yeah, it's also important to have lots of other things as well. So it's important to have peace of mind. But if you want to do it, then I would tell them that start this way. Focus on what you want to achieve, whatever that is. Call it a resolution, call it a goal, whatever you want to. But be able to define the hard turn you're willing to make to achieve that goal. So if it is changing your diet, if it is changing your lifestyle, if it is changing work habits, whatever it is, but doing something. Define that hard turn. The more you can define that hard turn, the better.
Yeah, but I also think that hard turn can be that in itself can sometimes be a mountain too big to climb. So, that hard turn has to be broken down into a lot of little steps. Otherwise, I'm going to have a panic attack, especially if it's diet and exercise. Like, if you tell me that that's what I have to do to get there, that feels huge. And that makes me almost freak out. But if I can break that down and say, okay, this year, I mean, I don't drink soda, but if it was this year, I'm not going to drink any sugared sodas, or I'm not going to drink soda at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that feels more manageable to me than this huge, big, I think you ease into that turn. You will get to that hard turn.
Well, it's interesting. That's exactly where I was going. See, this is why you need to be on the show more often. You knew exactly where I was going. We have to be willing to decide whether we're willing to make that turn. Don't do it because some talking head says, if you make this hard turn, you'll be successful in life. You'll be happy if you do this. Happiness is a choice. Happiness is there's nothing that's going to say, if I do this, I'm going to be happy, because that turns into, now if I do this, I'll be happy. Now if I do this, I'll be happy. Now if I do that, if I have $1 million, I'll be happy. Now if I have 2 million, I'll be happy. Now if I have 3 million, I'll be happy. Blah, dot, 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 dot.
Yeah.
So start with what you just said. In order to break it down, first of all, look back look back at what you've achieved. Look back at where you came from. I'm not talking about looking back and patting yourself on the back too much, but just look at the road you came from and take a look at the stuff you've accomplished. And if any of that comes close to the turn you're willing to make, then you know you can do it.
Mhm.
If it doesn't, then you have a decision to make. Now, I will tell you, every single person listening who says, yeah, but these turns are difficult to make, I'm not sure I'm willing to do it. Okay. Not willing to do it and not able to do it are two different things. If you're going to say you're not able to do it, just remember that you're listening here having successfully navigated through a pandemic.
Yeah.
So if you can navigate that, I'm pretty sure you can navigate this. But again, decide whether it's something you're not willing to do or not able to do, because they're two very different things. If you're not able to do it, then break it down to stuff you are able to do. If you can't lose 20 pounds, lose 5. If you can't give up all drinking, then start with 1. My father gave up smoking cold turkey because I had an allergy to smoke. But I see people struggling with smoke, and he was smoking a pack and a half a day.
Wow.
I see people who have trouble quitting their smoke, but I see them actually slowing down or trying to find ways, whether it's the gum, the steps, whatever the case. I've worked very closely with 2 separate recovering alcoholics, and I've actually been one of them. I've been their sponsor, even though I'm not in the program, but I've been willing to be their sponsor. And it was very much about them basically coming and saying that, okay, I'm gonna actually I can't just give up drinking cold turkey because I have to go back as a disease, but I'm going to take these steps. I'm going to hear other people's stories, and I'm going to actually take these steps because, as outrageous as my story sounds, their story sounds more, whatever the case may be. I remember one of the goals I wrote down in 2013. I was going through a really rough period, professionally. It was bad. And one of the goals I wrote down was that I swore to myself I would never let anybody make me feel that way again. And the hard turn was something that you and I both agreed to, a book written by Mel Robbins called Let Them. I started figuring out the stuff I can't control. The hard turn I made was the stuff I can't control no longer lives in my head rent free.
Yeah.
Right? The stuff I can't, that was the hard turn. And the resolution was, I will never be made to feel like a failure again. I will never be made to feel less than ever again. It will never happen to me again. Right? That was it was a hard resolution, but it was difficult to do that. So all spectrum. So I would tell you that as you're setting these goals, look back first, have reflection on the stuff that you've accomplished, and celebrate it. Celebrate it, no matter how big or small. Celebrate it. Relieve the pressure and the anxiety that comes with setting a new goal. Like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. You may still have a panic attack. And when you have that panic attack, break things down, but then actually start separating out the stuff you can and can't control.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say that whole idea of just letting go of the things you can't control. Just very recently, I bowed out of a family situation that is ongoing. It takes up a lot of rent in my head and many others. But I decided that it was not serving me, and I wasn't adding anything. I was not, adding any benefit. I was not providing any benefit to anybody in the situation. So it was really difficult, but I said, I need to step back. I need to, I'm happy to, provide emotional support if you need it, but I can't be actively involved in this anymore. And what it did was free me up, like free my time up and my emotions. And I was amazed at what it peeled back to allow me to move forward with some of the things that were important to me. Like you said, that space it was taking up in my head is now available to me to use in a way that serves me better.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we get, that's exactly right. I think we get so caught up in trying to basically find blame when we don't achieve our goals. Well,
that's
yeah,
that
I
victim
didn't lose.
mentality. Yeah.
I didn't lose 15 pounds because Aunt Mary kept giving me fried food and kept feeding me whatever. I didn't get to spend more time at home because my boss works me to the bone. Anybody who works with me listening to me knows I don't do that. it is very much like, okay, we find blame.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we have to look in the mirror. We are the ones responsible for how we achieve this. So it goes back to the hard turn that you have to make to achieve these goals. Are you
Mm-hmm.
willing to do it? Are you able to do it? If you're not willing to do it and you are able to do it, then you have a decision to make. If you're not willing to do it and you're not able to do it, then break it down to a smaller goal.
Mm-hmm.
What are you willing to do? What are you able to do? Progress is progress. We get so caught up in this. I remember, just from a sports analogy, you start looking at basketball. When Michael Jordan retired, everything was about who's the next Michael Jordan. This person's the next Michael Jordan. This person's the next Michael Jordan. This person's the next Kobe Bryant. This person's the next. Why? Even Michael Jordan himself said, don't do that, because he was chasing Dr. J. Don't do that. What for? Why? Yeah, okay. You want to set me up at a bar? Fine, great. But are you willing to take those steps? You go into, think about it. If you have siblings, right? Your two daughters who are wildly successful. At what point did they start getting competitive with each other?
I mean, I think they always were. They've always. I mean, since they were very toddlers, they were competitive. For our attention, and it's funny, even now in their 20s, I still have to make sure at Christmas. This is on me. I don't think they are this way, but I have to make sure everything is even. The number of gifts are even. The spend is even. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know what? That's, again, a choice, right? So they're making themselves better. So they're making themselves better. So one of their goals is to outdo the other, right? Not in a bad way. It's a healthy competition, but they're willing to make the hard turns to be successful. One of your daughters I admire so much because she has moved to a completely new location off on her own, because she is chasing something. She's chasing something she's wanted. Another one is enlisted and doing amazing work, just by your own words. They've all made a path, but they're all willing to make turns. And I would tell you that anybody who's listening who says, no, that's not me, you're listening right now, aren't you? That's a turn. By the way, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button.
Yes.
Yeah. Make sure you leave a comment. You're already, if you are thinking about this, you're already making a turn. If the word resolutions, goals, whatever it is, that's entering your mind, you've already made a turn. Just define it.
Yeah.
And
Also, don't you think, align yourself, get yourself associated with people who can
better.
Be your cheerleaders, whatever, cheerleaders, sponsors, support network. Don't stick with people who are going to help keep you stuck.
Right. That's exactly right. They can't be anchors. They've got to be force multipliers. This goes to the idea of stress-based goals. Right? You have long-term success, and long-term success comes from the people that are around you that make you better. This is how you get into these areas. This is how you actually get to these places where your goals matter the most, right? Where they actually have meaning to it, because you're not doing it. You don't achieve the goal and go, oh, thank God I achieved it. That's not what happens. It's this release that says, I can't believe I did that. And then it's constantly pushing to say, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I did that. So you're constantly expanding your horizon. I remember this analogy that I was listening to somebody, and I remember this analogy. The horizon line, you can see it, you can never touch it. It's always in front of you, never behind you. I mean, the only way it's behind you is if you turn around. And if you turn around, it means you're focusing on the past. And if you start running backwards to reach that horizon line, you still won't reach it.
Yeah.
So at any point in life, we have a choice. Run forward. And instead of just reaching for the horizon line, run forward, but run to something you can feel. Run to something you can see, but something you know is there. If you're going to look back, don't look back to go backwards. Look back to remember where you came from. Look back to see that horizon line getting further and further away, and then look forward to see that other horizon line staying the same. It's not getting further away. It's staying the same. But the stuff that happens along the way, That's the long term. The horizon line represents long term success. Long term success, and Simon Sinek has talked about this. Other greats have talked about this. Life isn't about winning or losing. Simon Sinek has this book called The Infinite Game. It's a great read, and here he talks about the fact that, and I've had the pleasure of meeting him several times. I actually have talked to him about this, and it's been an amazing conversation. And I've also heard him talk. I remember meeting him when he didn't have two pennies to rub together. Right, he wasn't the Simon Sinek then. One of the things that he talked about, and this is one of his newer books in The Infinite Game, is that there is no winning and losing. The game ends when you tap out and say, cool, I've had enough, right? But it keeps going. The game ends for you, but it keeps going. So if this notion in life is about winning and losing, and honestly, I was wired this way. I would end every week and go, this week I won. This week I lost. I need to win next week. And I need to, and it was causing so much anxiety. And I suspect on some level, that's where the panic attacks came from, because I kept setting up and saying, all right, this week I won. I have to win this week. I lost last week. I have to win. This month I've had 2 losses. I need to have 2 wins now. I can't end this month with a loss record. I've got to have a win record. I've got to have this.
It sounds exhausting.
Oh, it is exhausting. It was absolutely, it was eating me alive. And then I realized that I was taking credit for wins that I have no control over. And I was taking blame for losses that I have no control over. Now, that's not to say you're not responsible. If you're a leader, then ultimately you're responsible, right? It's on you. It comes with the territory. So I'm not saying that you just shun the responsibility and say, all right, just flow through life. Have ambition, have aspiration, but make sure you understand that stress-based goals get in the way of long-term success. Right? If you have, and when you write down these goals, you should have short-term and long-term. Something you want to achieve in 1 year is great, but what do you want to achieve in the next month? That person that you and I are talking to, that we know so well, he has had such a hard go. His wife suddenly passed away. He's in his 30s. She was the love of his life. And you and I both known him for a long time. And he's larger than life. We are talking to him, and he has been sharing his grief publicly by video. It is one of the hardest things to do. And I remember you and I have both said this to him, that no matter what he does or how he reacts, what he's going through, he will never be able to count how many people he is helping simply by sharing his grief publicly. Just a few weeks back, or I think last week, he was then let go by the company he works for. So on top of losing your wife, you lose your job, all within 4 months of each other or 5 months of each other. That's just blow after blow after blow. Yet, when you talk to this person, he is always looking at life the right way. He's always looking at life at, well, how do I help? And you and I have both said this to him, but we've talked about the fact that his goal is what happens 10 minutes from now.
Yeah.
So how have your conversations been with him? Again, we're not going to name him here because he does listen to the podcast. We're not going to name him here, but he is very special to us. So he's going to know who he is when he hears this.
Yeah. I appreciate him because, and one of the things I know about processing grief as well is that acts of service really help you. And he is focusing on acts of service. He's volunteering and he's doing some things, and he's doing it to honor his late wife, which I think is beautiful. And between chronicling his grief, which is another act of service, because there's so many people who, as you said, he's helping, but he's also out there in the community providing a really needed service. And I think that helps him a lot too. And I admire both of those things. And I think even when we feel stuck, I think it's a lesson for all of us when we feel stuck and we can't move forward with our goals, or we feel like we're getting nowhere, truly giving back, give acts of service, helping other people sometimes can help us get unstuck.
Absolutely. I mean, his life took a hard turn that he had no control over, a very hard turn. I would say, and some people will say, well, his life was derailed. I'm not a big fan of that word. Just like you don't like the word resolution, I don't like the word derailed. His life wasn't derailed. It's being redefined. He's going to be so much stronger when this is all over. His definition of goals are going to change. The hard turns he's willing to make are going to get bigger, because it's all going to be a cakewalk compared to what he's going through right now.
Yeah.
Right? So life for him, I'm not going to say it gets easier. I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say is that life becomes more meaningful for him. And this talks about something that I've thought about for a while. The fact that we have to redefine productivity,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are you productive or are you busy? Doesn't mean the
Right.
same thing, right?
Yeah.
Redefining productivity and success, right? What does success mean for him this year? I'm sure his goal is I'm sure he's got a goal that says, I need to be able to get through this, not
Yeah.
get over it, get through it. That's a
Just
hard goal,
survive. Yeah.
right? And his hard turn, which he's doing, and he's doing it amazingly, is I want to publicly document what I'm going through
Mm-hmm.
so that anybody else who feels it can see my videos and can see what I'm doing and can talk about this. I'm going to document this. The other thing he's going to, the hard turn is he's so used to setting large goals that are long term for himself. I want to be here in 5 years. And now he's having to make a hard turn to say, I got to focus on what's in front of me for the next 10 days,
Yeah. I've got
the
to
next
get
10.
through this day. I've got to get
Mm-hmm.
through this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's already making the hard turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about a hard turn you've had to make and how it redefined your goals.
Well, um, probably my biggest hard turn was after I lost my husband. I waited the year, like everybody suggests you wait a year before you make any big decision. And right at that 1 year mark, I decided I'm moving across the country and I'm taking my girls and we're going. And it took another year for me which I think is important to mention. These goals take time. You don't just, even if it's a hard turn, it still took me a year to get everything in place to be able to make the move. um but it opened up all sorts of opportunities for my girls. It helped me find my now husband. And it made a huge change in my life. I mean, I have other all along the way throughout my life, there have been huge hard turns that I've made, but that's my most recent. Yeah, how
So,
about you?
yeah, I was just gonna say, for me, I met you for the first time after you made that cross country move.
Did we? Maybe. Okay. Maybe
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
I was
right
thinking it might
around
have been
there, right?
before,
Maybe,
but
maybe just after. Well, right around that time.
maybe right around that
Right,
time.
right
Yeah.
around that time.
Mhm.
So this goes back to something we talked about earlier, right? The wins that aren't planned,
Mhm.
right? Wins that aren't
Yeah.
planned that mattered. You matter. This win matters.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks, friend.
this win
You too.
matters. Yeah, I mean, look, here we are, right?
Yeah.
And we can't lose sight of that. And here's the other part of that. And I firmly believe this. Life is a series of temporary moments, no matter how much despair you're in. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to say I understand because nobody will fully understand what kind of despair anybody's going through. But the only ones making it permanent are us. It is temporary. No matter how bad it is, it will pass.
Mhm.
It always does. It will pass. So when we setting their goals, we have to set our goals for goals, resolutions, whatever. We have to set these moments, set these items, and focus not on what's happening right now. Focus on where we want to be and focus on
Mhm.
the hard turns that are required. Are we willing and able to make it? If we're not able to make that hard turn, then that goal isn't for right now. That
Right.
goal might be
That's
for a little bit
correct.
later, but that hard, okay, if you're not willing to, okay, different story. But if you're not able to, okay, then let's revisit these goals that are not stress derived, but are actually goals that are long term success. So you know the goal that you want to achieve. So then what you said earlier, let's break it down. We're not able to make the hard turn to achieve that goal we want to achieve. Okay, let's break this down. This mutual friend of ours has a long-term goal of what he wanted to achieve. That goal is now put off. It's not gone away, but it's put off because he is
Mhm.
not able to make the hard turns to achieve that goal. He now has to focus on the goals where he can make the hard turns.
Yeah.
Right?
What where can I have a win? Like, I mean, I know this sounds silly, but I like to set myself up for success.
Mm-hmm.
So I really will pick achievable goals,
Mm-hmm.
and so that I have something I can check off. That feels good to me. Even it's like I make my bed every single morning. The minute I get out of bed, that's a win for me. And I like having a few wins every day. So I feel like if there's a few things I know I can do every single day, then it makes it easier to grab another,
Yeah,
put
yeah.
something else, put a check mark by something else.
100%. I look, it's 100% right. It doesn't matter big or small. So this is not about making anybody's goals more important than the other, and nobody should let you or make you feel like your goals aren't as important as this. Everybody wants to take over the world. Everybody wants to say, "Oh, I'm going to be the most important person on the." It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
We need to be able to again go back to the fact that there's a difference between chronic pressure and challenge. So this book, Mel Robbins, that I was talking about, I mentioned this in the last episode with my sister-in-law. We talked about this book, Let Them, by Mel Robbins. And you've read this book as well.
Yeah.
It's a game changer. I love this book.
Mm-hmm.
It's not rocket science, but it is very much about the stuff you can control. Let them and then let me. And when we come down to this, the fact that, the let them idea, like, okay, let them. One of the things that I love that she talks about, and I talked about this last episode as well, uh, uh, is the fact that she talks about that Harvard study that said our bodies aren't designed to be in permanent stress mode.
Mm-hmm.
Our bodies are designed to be in fight or flight mode temporarily. They're not designed to be there permanently. When you get there permanently, that's when bad stuff starts happening. All health issues, everything else, whether it's weight gain, whether it's a heart condition, whether it's stress induced, whatever the case is, whatever it is, right? Your personal relationship starts falling apart. Your relationship with your children starts falling apart. Everything becomes a chain reaction because we're stuck in that mode that our bodies aren't designed to be there. It's like taking a high performance vehicle and sitting on the gas the whole time, revving the engine, or driving in reverse the whole way, or leaving it in neutral and just revving the engine, thinking that's going to basically be able to get the engine to run better. You're going to destroy the engine by the time it's all said and done. Engines aren't designed to do that. We as human beings aren't designed to be in fight or flight mode permanently. It's a choice. So when we set goals, if they are stress-inducing goals, stress-based goals, we're putting ourselves in those modes. So if we're talking about losing weight, who's it for? Is it because you want to lose weight for health? So for me personally, I've lost close to 50 pounds now. That was a
Stop. You did
goal.
that this year?
No. God, no. No way. Over the last few years, but it was something that I was a fat kid growing up. I had a size 40 waist in middle school. I was a fat kid growing up, and I was bullied and everything else. And I said I refuse to feel this way. It was bad enough that my name was so unique that people were like, "Oh, here we go. How do we make fun of this?" That was bad enough. So I learned how to defend myself. But beyond that, I realized, and my doctor said to me, he goes, "Your genes on your family on both sides are not the greatest. Both sides." He goes, you don't really draw top draw when it comes to your genes." My God, thanks, Doc. I appreciate it. But he has a point. So I made it a choice to say, you know what? I kept wanting to lose weight. And I remember when I lost my first 25 pounds, I was at a conference and I had somebody say this to me. He said, "Oh my gosh, you look fantastic. You lost weight. You look great. It's so much easier to talk to you now."
What?
Exactly. I stopped and I said, "What does that mean?" And she said, "Well, it's easier to talk to you now because now society is not judging us. As society or you?" And I point blank asked it. I said, "Society or you?" I said, "I didn't lose this weight for you. I lost this weight because I want to be around when my kids grow up. I want to be around when they're older. I want to be around when my grandkids are. I don't want to have my body falling apart because I see the genes in my family on both sides. And I see what my mother is going through. I see what my father went through. His was very sudden, but still, I see the fact that the genes were not there. I mean, with my father, nobody in his family, I have only one person now, but otherwise nobody in his family, in his immediate family, had ever lived past 80. So when he turned 70, in my mind, the clock started ticking. Every day, the clock started ticking. I said, "All right, I've got 10 years, at maximum 10 years. How do you live like that?" Right? And sure
I
enough,
don't know.
at 75,
that's a lot.
there,
Yeah.
at 75, there we go. And both of his parents passed before he was 20. My mother, her family has a bunch of health issues that are there as well. So I made it a point to say, no, I'm going to make the most of this. And I remember one doctor had said to me, well, arthritis, osteoporosis may be coming into Europe. I said, all right, well, I'm going to enjoy life to the fullest. I'm making a choice. My goal is to enjoy life to the fullest. So I go paragliding. I won't go skydiving anymore, but I'll go paragliding. I'll still race on tracks with go-karts every now and then, with cars every now and then. I'll do the stuff I want to do because at some point I know that I'm going to give myself the best chance possible. I'm making the hard turn to say that I'm going to actually eat well. I'm going to be regimented in my exercise. I'm going to actually make sure I take care of myself because I want to be around, because I don't want my kids to start counting the clock when I turn 70 to say, all right, well, here we go. Let's start counting now. I don't want that to happen. So I'm making a choice. Again, everybody's different. Now, I'm sure we're going to have comments saying, well, that goal, that's your goal. Yes, it's mine. No goal is good or bad for anybody. My point in saying all this is that to all of our listeners is that the goal, it's not about the goal as much as it is about the turns. The turns you are willing to make or not willing to make, able to make, not able to make. That's the story. How you navigated that turn. That's the story. And again, that keeps you out of fight or flight mode. You're there temporarily, but then you have that. We all have that person in life that just triggers us, right? You and I both know a few people.
Yeah.
Both the same people. We both know some of the same people that just trigger us. You're like, oh, nails on a chalkboard. Why? And I started telling people that if those people are going to bother you, at least charge them rent for living in your head. Why? You're doing it for free otherwise. I mean,
or find a way to not to have them in your.
Yeah, that's right. That's the hard turn. As you said,
limit your exposure to them.
That's the hard turn. Find a way to limit how much exposure they have in your life. That's the hard turn. Are you willing to make it? Are you able to make it? If you're able to make it, great, fantastic. Are you willing to make it? If you are, great, off we go. But celebrating it is really key. Something that, it's let them and letting go. It's let them and let me, right? Mel Robbins talks about this. So there's a phrase that you and I have looked at, and we're looking at it right now, actually. Choosing forward motion over perfection. What does that mean to you?
It takes a lot of pressure off, that's for sure, and that what we were talking about earlier, I think that's what I was trying to convey is just choosing forward motion. Just choose a few things that you can do every day that move you forward, but recognize that it's going to be messy.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
It's okay for it to be messy.
Right.
So
100%.
Yeah.
Right now, obviously, everybody is so caught up in politics. Everybody is so caught up. It doesn't matter what country you're in, not just here, but they're so caught up in politics. Well, so-and-so world leader said this, and so-and-so is horrible, and so-and-so is great, and so-and-so is this, and so-and-so is that. Are we really allowing one person to dictate how much time we give them? It doesn't matter what country you live in, whatever country. Are we really allowing one person? If a person, and I had this, I found this out after my father passed. We were living in Kenya, and he had told everybody that we had moved to the US to expand the business and whatnot. Come to find out, one of his goals was to give me a better life, education-wise and opportunities. So he, at the time, this is early 80s in Kenya, he made the choice. He said, look, the politics in this country are such as a young democracy, young country. There's a reasonable risk of coup. There's reasonable risk of this. We need to leave. My mother's family are refugees from Sudan. Sudan is finally making the news now with civil war, about the civil war there. By choice or not, they had to make the hard turn to leave, or they would have succumbed. My uncle in particular, we've talked about him on previous episodes. If he hadn't left, he probably wouldn't be alive right now.
Yeah.
And that part is there, becoming a refugee at 70 years old and losing everything, having to start all over again. But it's a hard turn. So part of it for me, again, I don't speak for anybody else, but for me, One of my goals that I had this year, and one that I keep every year, is never the same way I had the goal in 2013 and onward about never letting anybody or anyone or any group make me feel less than, or that I'm a failure, or make me feel so down on myself that I was willing to do dark things. I'm never going to let anybody make me feel that way again, right? I made a choice. I made a hard turn to say, nope, I'm not going to let these people live in my head rent free. It's the same thing. When it comes to the, politicians and other places, I'm making a choice to say, you are no longer living in my head rent free. I will, again, and I'm not talking about any one country, it's any country. You have the right to protest and everything else and whatnot. But are you willing to make the hard turn? Are you able to and willing to? If you're going to protest, are you willing to make the hard turn? Are you willing to sacrifice X, Y, or Z for the change? Are you able to attain that change? If you're not able to attain that change, people. I talked to one person that was part of a protest. This was during the revolution in Egypt. So remember, very close friend that was part of the protesters in Egypt said, no, we wanted the president gone. We wanted all this gone. That was our goal. Okay, then what?
Right.
Then what? What hard turn are you willing to make? Are you able to? Are you willing to? What's the actual goal? The changing of the regime wasn't the goal. That was an action. What was the goal? And I think, when you look at this, I think we get so, again, me personally, again, I don't speak to anybody else, but I get so caught up, I used to, in what a politician says. I would tear them apart. And then I just realized, you know what? I'm making a choice to not let them live in my head rent free, because I have come to the conclusion that none of them know what they're talking about. So, and if that's the case, that I'm making a choice. That does, and I'm sure somebody's gonna say, well, that means you're not gonna vote. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. What I said is that I'm making a hard choice to not let them live in my head rent free. The only person who controls my destiny is me. The only person who controls what I do in a given day is me, right? Whatever decisions they make might impact society, right? And yes, but I get to deal with it, and I have the ability to deal with it. So part of that goal is actually making a hard turn to believe in yourself more, in your own ability, because frankly, everything we need in life to succeed, we have inside of us.
That's true.
Right. Yes, people helping us along the way is great, but everything we need to succeed is inside of us. My father said this. It wasn't a quote, it was just in conversation. We were going somewhere, and we looked at these corporate jets that were flying out, and I think I said something stupid. I was a teenager, and I was like, oh, Dad, one day I'll have one of those. He goes, I would have rather you had said that one of your goals is not to have the jet, but to use the money you could have used to buy that jet to actually go and feed people. And so I stopped. I said, but Dad, I can go and feed them, but they're always going to be hungry. Because no, they have a choice. They can either accept your help and then try to make themselves better by actually chewing the food and being earnest and trying to do something with their life, or they can take it for granted and just be there nonstop. They're making a choice. So you have to decide for yourself, what you want to do. And I think it was very roundabout, whatnot, but I think I got the point. The point he was making was that one of your goals, if you're going to have a goal for that, then as you said, being in service is always a goal. Then if you have a goal to have XYZ material item, then what about the flip side? Right? So the people that are in really bad positions, that are screaming and begging for mercy and for help and whatnot, yes, help them. But you have to be able to help them find the strength to say that they can actually stand up on their own 2 feet. That's the able to, willing to part of it. That's the hard turns. The hard turn that I make as part of it, because what he taught me was, if one of my goals is to be in service of others. But being in service of others, whether it's through a foundation or whatever the case may be, means that I'm also making the hard turn to say that I'm only going to help you for 8 years. Yeah. You have to show me that you're self-sustaining. After 8 years, I'm not helping you anymore. You have to show me you're self-sustaining. I will help you become self-sustained to make yourself better. I'm not going to be here permanently to help you. That doesn't solve anything, but that's me. Yeah. That's my goal. So, but that's the hard turn I'm willing to make. The hard turn I'm willing to make is that I'm going to hold that person accountable and get them my goals to get them to believe that everything they need is inside of them. So, there's that.
I like it. There's a lot to unpack there, but I especially when you're trying to help others, there has to be that willingness. I mean, they have to be, as you said, they have to be willing. And I don't often think about that. I think sometimes when I try to help people, I force myself on them,
Mhm.
assuming that they will, be, I don't know about grateful, but that they will receive that and be inspired and,
Mhm.
all of that. I mean, think what we're talking about with, sustainable giving and all of that. It's important to really reflect on why you're
That's right.
giving and why you're sharing and what is your own mindset and expectation about that.
Right. I just had this conversation 2 weeks ago with a new project in Colombia that we're starting in January. It's just amazing. It's a Canadian ex-finance guy that moved to Colombia. He's owned a community kitchen now, and his goal is not to feed people. He's got a whole hydroponics drip system in his house. He lives on the second floor, and the hydroponics on the third floor, and the kitchen's on the first floor. And he brings people in from the community. And I had a long conversation with him, and he brings people in from the community not to feed them, but to help them, to teach them how to grow their own food, how to cook for themselves. So they become completely self-sufficient. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. And that's our new project, right? To say this is what we're supporting. I he spoke to my goal. My goal is to find people to say what's in them, and he's aligned with me. His goal is not to go and feed people because they're always going to be hungry. His goal is to go and teach them how to cook, to teach them how to grow their own food, to teach them how to be self-sustaining, so that they are never held to the mercy of a society that doesn't care for them. Right? He wants them to feel like they have the power to control their destiny, and that no one member of society, politician, leader, community leader, economics, whatever the situation is, no one situation is going to dictate whether they go hungry or not going forward. That's pretty powerful.
It is. And I like that you, bringing this back to our goals and resolutions, I like that you have aligned yourself with someone who has a similar vision
Mm-hmm.
and set of values. Again, I just think that's so important. That's how we move forward. We can't force ourselves to achieve something unless we, find like-minded individuals and find people who can, help us with our
Mm-hmm.
different steps along the way. Um,
It,
and that's
and
part of you.
well, I appreciate
Yeah.
it. And that's actually, we talked about this when we first met. When we first, during the, you and I were pretty much attached at the hip during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
We were
Yeah.
talking to each other almost every other day during the
Yep.
pandemic, right? I remember we were talking to people in our industry and saying, if you're scared, let's be scared together. Come on a call with us. Let's have a conversation together.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about, let's be scared together. Let's do this together. And it was and you know how appreciative everybody was.
Yeah.
I remember we used to do these webinars on training for destinations. When we stripped them down, and you and I did full economic webinars. Let's tear apart
Mm-hmm.
the noise. Let's get you to understand what's really happening. Let's tear it, just because they're all business owners. Let's get you to understand the basic fundamentals. Here's the things you got to. Here's the things you have to watch for. Here are the things you have to do. Now, it's the same thing what this chef in Colombia is doing. He's basically a force multiplier. So one of my goals was to be around force multipliers, to be a force
Mm-hmm.
multiplier and be around people who are also force multipliers. As you said, people who are not anchors, people who are smarter than you, people who themselves are force multipliers. They make you better, they make the people around them better. Because that is the hard turn I'm willing to make, because that feeds into a larger goal. And the larger goal for me is that I live my life every year, that I look back and say, have I done anything this year that my children have to apologize for? And my
Mm.
goal is to make sure that they never have to apologize, because members of our family have done stuff that people have to apologize for. I want to make sure that I don't do anything that they have to apologize for. They should never be ashamed of what their last name is. So in that vein, it is very much, again, the hard turn I'm willing to make is to actively be a force multiplier and to surround myself with force multipliers. So the hard turn I'm willing to make is saying goodbye to relationships that don't make sense, that are dragging me down, that are not force multiplying relationships, and bringing in these other relationships that are force multiplying relationships, because they are feeding the larger goal. So again, if that larger goal you cannot achieve because you're not able to, then break it down, as you said, to smaller goals. Break it
Yeah.
down to what you can achieve, what you are able to achieve, because it then feeds the larger goal.
Yeah. That's right.
And that's the bigger picture context. That's the bigger
It
picture we're
is.
talking about, right?
It is. And be patient. Be
Mm-hmm.
patient. Trust the cliche. Trust the process.
Right,
Be patient.
right.
Celebrate your wins, even the little wins, knowing that, They bring you one step closer to what you want to achieve.
And I'm going to close with this because this was written down and I love this. So actively choosing resilience and adaptability over rigid plans, right? A goal isn't a rigid plan. A goal is a means to an end, but it's just that end. Then there's something behind it. If we focus on the hard turns that we're willing or able to make or not willing, not able to make, then all of a sudden that goal becomes a smaller goal. Then it becomes, as you said, becomes realistic and attainable, right? What they call those SMART goals. They're attainable and measurable and realistic and whatnot. All those goals, they start stepping in, but they are about resilience and adaptability, right? There is no straight line to that goal. Right? If your goal is to lose 20 pounds, like my goal to lose weight wasn't a straight line. There were hard turns, and it was actually figuring out how your metabolism works, what food my body reacts to, what food my body doesn't react to, what food I should eat, what food I shouldn't eat, what food I could eat, what food I couldn't eat. Hard turns. It's not a straight line. If your goal is to have a Lamborghini, just randomly, whatever, right? If you're listening, only because my son's listening, I know he's going to say that. So if your goal is to have a Lamborghini, it's not a straight line.
Right.
It's not a straight line, right? It's going to go. And it doesn't matter what that goal is. Are you willing or able to make those hard turns? If you're willing to make it, we're off the race. If you're not willing to make it, you got to ask yourself some questions. If you are not able to make that goal, then that's not the goal for right now. Break it down to a smaller goal that you are able to make a hard turn for, and that you're willing to make a hard turn for.
Yeah,
you do that,
absolutely.
we're off the races.
You are. I like to tell my girls, and other people too, but I believe this myself. It's if you think of it like a maze, and if a door closes on your way to your goal, that's not the path you're supposed to take.
Right.
Be grateful that door closed. You are one step closer now to however it is that you are supposed to achieve it. And you might have one door slamming after another, but your path gets clearer and clearer and more distilled, and the focus becomes, a lot
Absolutely.
more tangible.
That's right.
So just let those doors close. Let them close, but keep moving forward.
That's right. That's right. And the challenge we have for all of our listeners, is choose one intention. Choose one intention that moves you and move forward towards that without stress. Yep. Ask yourself if you're willing or able to make those hard turns. If it's yes to both, off we go. If it's no to one or the other, then stop and reassess. But choose one intention. Don't choose 5. Choose one. Then move forward with that one.
You've got this.
That's it. Thanks for listening.
I believe in you.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Remember, we do believe in you. Remember, to achieve these goals, be a force multiplier. Be that big success in a small area. Be the one you were supposed to be. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to The Sustainable Voice. If you have a success story of your own, please reach out and share it with us. We'd love to hear from you. See you next time.